A policewoman is holding a boy and says she is going to take him to jail. A man appears and asks what was going on. The police officer calls him a deputy and says the boy had just stolen a woman's purse and was resisting arrest. The delegate then tells the police officer that he would take care of the situation from that moment on. The sheriff scolds the boy, telling him to stop doing those actions and asks him to think better of his life. The boy says that the man had never worried about him before, so he couldn't tell him what to do. The delegate says that he always worried about the boy and that despite all his efforts, paying everything he needed, the boy still insisted on disappointing him, but that it would end that day. Three men are talking on the sidewalk about their plans when the deputy appears carrying the boy by the arms. The sheriff says he will teach the boy a lesson about life. The men say they are not doing anything wrong, that they were just talking, but the deputy says that was not why he was there. He says that his son just wants to know about doing wrong things, that he no longer goes to school, doesn't want to work, so he tells the men to take care of the boy for him. The men ask what the sheriff wants them to do with the boy. He says that since the boy wants so much to become a criminal, he should spend some time with real criminals to understand about life. The man in black asks if the boy can do the jobs for him, and the others say that the boy is just a rich boy, that he wouldn't be able to do even the simplest jobs. The boy says that was not true, that his father didn't understand anything about him and that it was for the men to let him prove that he could perform the services. The man in black asks the man in gray if the boy would be able to perform the job he had told him about before. The man in gray says that the boy was very inexperienced and that if he himself couldn't perform the work, the boy couldn't either. The boy says he could do it and asks them to let him prove he can. So the man in the flowered shirt says he has an idea for the boy to do. He points to a woman who was passing by and tells the boy that that would be his first job. The boy then asks what the men wanted him to do with the woman, and the man in the flowery shirt says he wants him to take her bag and bring it to him so he can present his wife with that bag. When the boy tries to steal the woman's purse, she manages to break free and knocks him to the ground. She threatens him, telling him to choose his victims better because if that happened again, she wouldn't let him escape in one piece. The men, seeing that, start to ridicule the boy for the fact that he was beaten by the woman. The boy gets up and goes to meet the men, saying that it would be impossible to steal that woman because she was an experienced fighter. The men laugh at the boy, saying that he was very weak and inexperienced, but that they would give the boy one more chance to prove his worth. They say that if the kid really wants to get into the criminal world, he should start doing harder jobs. He says he just couldn't do the last job because the woman was an experienced fighter, but he would be able to do the next one without any problems. The men say it had better be true, because he wouldn't have any more chances. If he failed in that job, they would put an end to him. The boy says he won't fail anymore and asks about his next job, that he would do anything, rob a person, jump over a wall, anything. The man in black says it will be easy to say, but he wants the hard part to prove it. But before the hardest job, he would have to do another simpler job. He wants the boy to go to the building nearby and get a box of tools that man says are very valuable. The men laugh and say that the man had forgotten to mention that there was a very large guard dog in that building. Later, the boy tries to sneak into the building to perform the service when he hears the dog barking. Seeing that it was a very big dog, he quickly flees from there and goes back to the men. Seeing this, the men laugh at the boy and say that he would not be able to do the job. The boy then complains to the men about why they didn't warn him about the guard dog. The men say that he didn't need to make excuses for not doing the job, that he would never be able to be like them and tell him to leave. The boy says that he can do the services, the men who are creating difficulties on purpose for him. The man in black then tells him not to regret what he is asking for, because the life of a criminal is not easy, but he would give the boy the last chance to prove his worth. The boy says he really wants to become a criminal and tells the men to let him try one more time. The men agree and say that he would be able to try one last time and that he wasn't going to let them down again, because if he failed, there would be no turning back. The boy agrees and asks what this service would be, and then the men begin to explain the details to him. Later, the four arrive at a shed and there is a man tied up and his head covered. The man in black tells the boy to untie the man and he does. So the man in black says that the boy was supposed to cut the man's finger off. The boy says no problem with that. The man in black says he likes the boy's attitude, but he wanted him to cut the man's finger looking at his face, and removes the blindfold from the man's face. Seeing that it was his father, the boy despairs and says he cannot do that to his father, but the men begin to force him to do it. Seeing that the boy would not cut it, the man in black says that he himself will cut off the man's finger. The man then tells his son to cut off his finger, as he wanted to become a criminal just like those men, so he would have to cut off his finger. Seeing that the man in black would cut his father's finger, the boy tries to stop him from doing that and says that he can't go on with that and that he didn't want to become a criminal anymore, and asks the men to let go of his dad. He starts crying and asking his father's forgiveness for his decisions and says he would never do that again. The man then stands up and tells his son that it was just to teach him a life lesson, as he wanted to become a criminal and the life of a criminal would not be good. It is then shown that some time ago, the man had arranged with them a way to teach his son a lesson. It was for the men to pose as criminals and make a scene that looks real so their son would learn about the life of crime. Men say they already have a perfect plan for him. The man also arranges with the lieutenant for her to help him. The man, angry with his son, says that everyone there is undercover police, that it was all for his son to understand that life was not good. Men tell the boy that a criminal's life is not worth it. The man then says that he loves his son and wants the best for him. All he wants is to see his son well, and that he didn't want to see him suffering. And then he hugs.